With us being not that far away from the release of the Galaxy Flip 4, I wanted to take a look back at the Galaxy Flip 3 and have a conversation about power and power efficiency, because it is confirmed, the leaks, Ice Universe, everybody's had it, that the Flip 4 is going to feature the Snapdragon Gen 8 Mark 1, which is fine, and it was kind of a given for a while there. You think, okay, yeah, sure, it's the flagship processor of the year. Why wouldn't the Flip 4 have something like that? And it got me thinking. I put my SIM back in this a few days ago and started using it, and it got me thinking, what do we really need when we're talking about the Flip 3? Why did we need a Snapdragon 888 in something like the Flip 3 with this form factor when it costs so much in terms of battery life? And it got me thinking to the devices that had come out just before this one. So I remember everybody panning Moto for putting a Snapdragon 710 and then with the 5G version, a Snapdragon 765G in their Moto Razr reboots. Everyone said, well, you're charging all that money. How could you not possibly put a flagship processor in there? You're nerfing everybody and so much money and all the rest of it. And that's fine. Okay. And then I remember all the hoopla about people about the Fold 2 camera system. Everyone saying, how could you not put a flagship camera in there for all of that money? When we did the comparisons of the photos that come out of the Fold 2 are just fine. I don't know what everyone was getting all worked up about. I was like, we need a flagship camera in the Fold series. Well, do you? You know, it might just be possible that we're paying the extra money for the form factor, for the technology. It's not just, you're not paying a spec sheet. I understand if you're paying $1,200 for just a slab phone, that's a priority. You want to have the best of the best of the best because you're paying top dollar. When it comes to a folding device, the technology, the form factor, the convenience of having that big screen on the go or something like this where you can have a full-featured smartphone that then folds down to this size, that has value. We have to add that in. So if you're talking to me about the Flip 4, saying, what are we going to do to keep it at $1,000? But I think that's a very important price point. But give us a little bit more in terms of battery life, in terms of performance in other areas. I think it's important to look at the idea that maybe we don't need the latest and greatest in terms of Snapdragon processors when it comes to your Flip 3. Think about what you're using something like this for, especially when it comes to the limited battery life. Are you gaming all day on your Flip 3? No. Are you doing 4K video at 60 frames a second all day on your Flip 3? No. Are you doing YouTube video editing and all the rest of it on your... No, of course not. When we talked about the Flip 3, if anything, we talked about it as kind of a disconnect device. It was stuff that you do less on, and that was a good thing in a good way, because it stopped you from, well, I don't really need to refresh that Facebook feed for the 37th time in the last 5 minutes, because it's an effort. You have to consciously flip it open, go to it, and then do it, right? So it keeps you away from those things you really don't need to be doing during the day. And when you know that the battery life on top of it isn't that fantastic, you're talking 3.5, 4 hours of screen on time, it keeps you away from some of the nonsense stuff. But in a positive way, because when you're using this, the experience is still excellent. And I love the form factor. But do we need to have a Snapdragon 888 and the next year, or this year rather, coming up, a Snapdragon Gen 8 Mark 1 in there to do that? To do the things that you actually do on a Flip. It's nice to have all of that stuff. So it got me thinking about that. Okay, what if they put a 700 series processor in there? Maybe they even cut the cost just a little bit. That might be a good thing. And I was all for it, especially if it costs us, if it gives us back some battery life on this device so you could use this awesome form factor a little bit more. I understand why they don't, because of the criticism that everybody would give you, because of the price point. Then I got to thinking, well, I really like how smooth this device runs. I really like the fact that people who are buying this, they kind of went after the iPhone consumer with this device, kind of a chic device. They had a lot of celebrities with Flip 3s in their hands. Maybe that's a consumer that doesn't give up their device for 2, 3, or 4 years. So you want to give them the latest and greatest so that you can keep running, the devices keep running smoothly well into the future, even with updates to One UI. That's a possibility as well. So I was thinking, all right, I really like how smooth this is. And given my experience with the Snapdragon, with the Samsung mid-range devices, specifically the A53 5G, and what they perhaps give, God forbid, an Exynos processor in there, it scares me a little bit. And it gets me thinking maybe Samsung needs to put the top-of-the-line Snapdragon in here to keep the thing running well. Because the mid-tier processor, the mid-tier experience in the A series, at least that A53 for me, was not good. So it depends on what they'd replace it with going forward. But I do think we need to get out of this mindset that just because a device is X price, it needs to have X spec. And when I was talking about the A53 5G, I almost threw something. Nothing aggravates me more than people saying, well, the benchmarks were better than the what? I don't care. Could someone tell me what the ratio of how many Antutu points does it is before it's worth a 50% less or $5 less or $10 less or how many zero Antutu points? I don't care. I don't care about a benchmark. A benchmark is not how the device is optimized. It's not how the device is running. So I think we get lost on spec there. So I want to get us out of that mindset that this form factor, the fold, the display is worth money. So we could have this device come in at $899, $999 with not a top-of-the-line processor if they give us back screen on time. Get comfy with that. Be able to have a phone release that does that, that's not immediately panned for charging X price, but only giving you X spec. But if they give you back battery life and the experience is that much better because of it, isn't that worth money? To me, it is. That's kind of where I get lost there. So I think we need to get out of this spec mindset and 2.2 benchmark, 3D mark, whatever benchmark mindset, and start to experience the devices and recognize that that's where the value is, not in just some paper nonsense. So what camp are you in? Would you rather have a 700 series perhaps in here, which are perfectly good? Heck, the 695 I'm using in that Nord N20 is fantastic. Now, you can't charge $1,000 and give people a 695. I don't care what it does. It could fly. It needs to come in a little bit better than that. There's other 800 series processors. There's high-end 700 series processors. If it could give us battery life and performance into the future at 90, 120 hertz, what difference does it make? Does it make a difference to you in your everyday use of this thing? Right? You're doing 3D rendering on your Flip 3 with three minutes of battery life at that point? No, of course not. So, are you willing to give that up, or do you want the future-proofing, essentially, that having a flagship level processor gives you, because you're keeping your device 2 and 3 and 4 years? I could see it either way. At first, I was in the camp where I want the battery life, give us a weaker processor if it makes more sense. But then I'm like, well, if you're keeping this device, if you work on the battery life, if you work on the optimization, perhaps. I still think I lean towards battery life, because you want to use this thing. This thing is fantastic, and you want to have it for years to come. And battery life typically gets worse on these devices. So if you could figure out a way to keep it power efficient well into the future, but still running well, I think I'm in that camp. But let me know what you think down below in the comment section. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, they at least got to figure out the heat on these Snapdragons, right? 888 was horrible on heat efficiency. Gen 8 is horrible on heat efficiency. Can we just a little bit, just cool them off just a touch? Have that Steve-alicious day.